There's always that one coworker who just bought a house, and you don't have to ask. They'll tell you. They'll tell everyone. Suddenly, lunch isn't lunch anymore. It's a guided tour. Their phone comes out like it's a framed family portrait, and you're looking at granite countertops the way you'd look at baby pictures, nodding with practiced admiration while they explain that the open concept is going to change everything. And the basement is basically a home gym, except right now it's boxes, a folding chair, and a dehumidifier that sounds like a lawnmower. They start saying words like equity and investment the way people say vitamins and discipline, with this calm confidence that makes you feel like you missed a meeting where the rules of adulthood were handed out. And you smile. You congratulate them. You do the whole social ritual. But later, when you're alone, something starts gnawing at you. Not jealousy exactly. Something quieter and meaner. A whisper that asks, "Why haven't I done that yet? Am I behind? Am I failing at life?" And it never says it like a question. It says it like a verdict. Here's the truth. Nothing is wrong with you. What's wrong is the story you've been sold. Not a small lie, not a harmless cliché, but a cultural script so embedded that challenging it feels like challenging gravity. The script is simple and seductive. Renting is flushing money down the toilet, and buying a house is building wealth. My name is David, and I want to take that script, lay it flat on the table, and run the numbers nobody runs out loud. Because for a lot of people in 2026, in a lot of markets, buying a house isn't an investment. It's a high-fee, high-risk commitment wrapped in adult-looking packaging, and the only reason it feels safe is because everyone around you repeats the same line until it sounds like wisdom. Let's start with the phrase you've heard your entire life. Rent is throwing money away. It's delivered like a sermon, passed down like an heirloom. Your parents say it. Your uncle says it after his third beer. Someone at the gym says it with the confidence of a man who just discovered personal finance yesterday. And on the surface, it makes sense. Rent goes out every month, and at the end of the year, you don't own anything. A mortgage, though, a mortgage feels like progress. A mortgage feels like you're paying yourself. Except that's not what's happening. Not at first, not for a long time. When you own a house, you also throw money away, a lot of it. The difference is that the money leaves through so many exits, interest, taxes, insurance, repairs, fees, that it doesn't feel like one clean loss. It feels like adulthood. It feels like just how it is. And because it's fragmented, most people never total it up. So let's total it up. Imagine you buy a $400,000 house. You put some money down and take a $350,000 mortgage at 7% for 30 years. Your principal and interest payment is about $2,330 a month, and on paper that number looks like a plan. It looks like something you can make work. Now look at what's inside that payment in the first year. In month 1, the interest alone is roughly $2,040. The principal, the part that actually reduces what you owe, is under $300. Over the first year, you're still basically paying the bank for the privilege of owing the bank. Call it around $2,000 a month in interest and a few hundred that actually builds ownership. That means in year 1, roughly $24,000 of your housing budget doesn't buy you shelter, doesn't build you wealth, doesn't create an asset. It's just the cost of borrowing. It's gone. It's not invested. It's paid. And that's before we add the costs everyone conveniently treats like background noise. Property taxes on that house might run you $4,000 to $6,000 a year, depending on where you live, and they don't care if your income stays steady. That's another few $100s every month, forever, and it tends to rise. Homeowners insurance adds another $150 to $300 a month. Maintenance is the quiet killer because it's not one bill, it's a lifetime subscription. Roofs, water heaters, plumbing surprises, appliances dying in synchronized rebellion. The rule of thumb is about 1% of the home's value each year. On a $400,000 house, that's $4,000 annually, and that's the average, which means some years are nothing and some years are a financial punch in the throat. And if you didn't put 20% down, you may be paying PMI, which is the special fee you pay for the honor of not having enough money. Add a couple hundred more a month for that until you've bought your way out of it. Maybe you have HOA dues. Maybe you don't. Either way, the $2,330 mortgage that everyone quotes like it's the full price is not the full price. In the real world, that $2,330 often becomes $3,300, $3,600, even $3,900 a month when you include the stuff that keeps the house standing and keeps you compliant. Now here's the punchline nobody wants to sit with. In that first year, out of all that money leaving your account, only a few hundred a month is actually becoming equity. The rest is consumption. Interest to the bank, taxes to the county, insurance to the insurer, repairs to whoever can come out next Tuesday between 11 and 3. So when someone tells you renting is throwing money away, you're allowed to ask a simple question. Compared to what? Because owning isn't paying yourself. Owning is paying a whole crowd of people, and then slowly, over decades, accumulating a portion of the value of an illiquid asset while you also carry all the risk. This is where the conversation gets serious, because the real cost of buying isn't just what you pay, it's what you can't do with the money you tie up. Two people can live in the same city, drive the same car, eat the same groceries, and end up in wildly different financial realities based on one choice. Let's call them Person A and Person B. Person A rents a place for $2,000 a month. Person B buys the house, and when you include the full cost, mortgage interest, taxes, insurance, maintenance, and the inevitable something broke, they're closer to $3,500 a month, at least in the early years. That's a $1,500 difference, not because Person B is irresponsible, but because homeownership in many markets is structurally expensive right now, especially at high rates. Now ask the question that changes everything. What if Person A takes that $1,500 and invests it every month, instead of letting it dissolve into lifestyle creep? At a conservative long-term return, say 7% annually in a diversified index fund, $1,500 a month for 30 years grows into roughly $1.8 million. And that's just the monthly difference. It doesn't even count the down payment and closing costs Person A didn't lock into a house. If Person A invests an extra $50,000 up front instead of burying it in a down payment, that lump sum can grow to hundreds of thousands over the same period. Meanwhile, Person B's house might appreciate too. Let's give it a reasonable 3% annual appreciation. A $400,000 house becomes about $970,000 in 30 years. That sounds like a win until you remember the price of getting there. Over 30 years at 7%, the interest on that mortgage alone is in the neighborhood of $500,000. Then there are decades of property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. Then there are transaction costs when you buy and when you sell. Then there's the time cost, weekends spent fixing, managing, worrying. Now, I'm not saying renting always beats buying. I'm saying the slogan, renting is throwing money away, is not analysis, it's marketing. In some markets and some timelines, owning can absolutely work. If you buy at a reasonable price relative to rent, if you get a low rate, if you stay long enough, if you actually want the lifestyle and you can afford the volatility, it can be a good choice. But in 2026, for a lot of people, the math doesn't automatically favor buying. It favors the person who has liquidity, flexibility, and a plan. And that's where the uncomfortable truth shows up. For many homeowners, the house isn't a wealth machine. It's a forced savings program. The mortgage forces you to send money somewhere you can't easily touch. You can't wake up at 2 a.m., panic scroll, and transfer your equity into a weekend trip and a new couch. Equity is hard to access, and that illiquidity is exactly why it builds wealth for people who would otherwise spend. So if you're someone who can rent for less, invest the difference, and actually stick to the investing part, you're not behind. You're playing a different game, one that can be just as powerful, often more powerful, because your wealth is liquid. It moves, it works while you sleep, and it doesn't require a new roof every 15 years. So why does the myth survive so aggressively? Because a lot of people get paid when you buy. Agents get paid when you transact, brokers get paid when you sign, banks get paid for decades. The entire ecosystem of homeownership has more incentives to sell you the dream than to show you the spreadsheet. And then there's the generational gap. Your parents might genuinely believe homeownership is the best investment they ever made, because for many of them, it was. They bought when prices were lower relative to income and rates and rent, when the gap between owning and renting wasn't this wide, when starter homes actually existed. They saw the number on Zillow go up and concluded it was magic. What they don't total up is the interest they paid, the repairs they financed, the taxes they absorbed, and the fact that broader inflation lifted everything, not just their house.
Now let's bring this down from theory to real life, because this is where people stop arguing and start feeling it. Meet the Johnsons, dual income, doing everything right, making $180,000 a year. They buy that $400,000 house, maybe in a decent suburb, maybe with a yard they'll be too tired to enjoy. On paper, they're the success story. After taxes, retirement contributions, and health insurance, they might take home around $11,000 a month. It sounds like plenty until the bills start lining up like they've been waiting for their cue. Their total housing cost eats a few thousand right away. 2 cars, because commuting and school drop-offs don't care about your ideals, swallow another chunk. Insurance, gas, student loans, groceries that now cost what rent used to cost, utilities for a bigger space, childcare if they have one kid and both parents work, and suddenly they're staring at the month with a couple $1,000s left for everything else. Medical co-pays, clothes, birthdays, saving, living. Then life does what life always does. The HVAC dies, the fence collapses, the water heater decides it's done participating in society. Their emergency fund gets reset to 0, and now equity is the only comfort blanket they have, except equity doesn't pay the plumber. Equity doesn't buy groceries. Equity doesn't cover a surprise deductible. Equity is a number that lives behind paperwork. And yes, after 5 years, they might have built tens of thousands in equity. It feels good. It feels like progress. But the question isn't whether equity exists. The question is what it costs them to get it, and what it prevents them from doing while they're chasing it. Because here's the part nobody says at the Kitchen Island reveal. Equity isn't money until you can use it. To use it, you have to sell, and then you need somewhere else to live. Or you borrow against it, which is just debt with better branding. A home equity line of credit is not a victory lap. It's the ability to turn your house into a credit card, secured by the place you sleep. And the Johnsons aren't unique. They're the normal story. Upper middle class income, middle class fragility. Not because they're lazy, but because the fixed obligations are heavy and the margin for error is thinner than people admit. Now imagine what happens if one of them loses a job, a few months without that income, and the asset stops feeling like an asset. Miss enough payments, and the bank doesn't care about your memories, your paint choices, your garden, your sense of identity. The bank doesn't foreclose on your dream, it forecloses on a contract. In that scenario, the renter has a move available that the homeowner doesn't. The renter can downshift. The renter can take a cheaper place. The renter can change cities for a better offer without paying tens of thousands in transaction costs just to escape. Flexibility isn't romantic, but it keeps you alive. And yes, someone will always jump in and say, "But my house doubled in value." Maybe it did. A lot of houses did. A lot of assets did. Stocks rose, rents rose, prices rose. We lived through a period where trillions of dollars entered the system and everything inflated. If your house went up, that's good for you, but it's not automatically proof that buying is superior, especially if you also poured money into repairs, paid a mountain of interest, and now if you want to access the gain, you have to either sell and buy back in at the same inflated prices, or borrow against it and pay interest all over again. Here's a question that cuts through the fog. If buying a house is such an obviously superior decision, why does it require a 30-year loan to make it affordable? Think about what we normalized. Not a loan, but 3 decades.
The standard path to the American dream is signing a contract that follows you longer than some marriages, and we call it maturity. We call it stability. We call it smart. A 30-year mortgage isn't evidence that houses are a great deal. It's evidence that houses are priced beyond what normal human cash flow can handle without financial engineering. And the system isn't confused about this. The system runs on it. So what do you do if you're looking at the market, looking at your income, and realizing that buying would stretch you thin, not for a month, but for years? You stop apologizing for renting. You treat renting like a strategy, not like a waiting room. Winning in 2026 doesn't always look like owning a house. Sometimes winning looks like renting a place that doesn't squeeze your lungs every time you open your banking app. Winning looks like having a real emergency fund, cash you can use without selling your life. Winning looks like being able to take a better job in a different city without calculating realtor commissions, closing costs, and the possibility of getting stuck in a down market. It also looks like actually investing the difference, not meaning to, not once things calm down, actually doing it, automating it, treating it like a bill you pay to your future self. Because the honest version of this story is simple. Renting is not throwing money away. Renting is paying for shelter and flexibility. Owning is also paying for shelter, plus paying for leverage, risk, and responsibility, and then slowly converting a portion of those payments into equity. Neither option is morally superior. One of them may be financially superior for you, and you can only know that by running the numbers in your reality. So run them. Don't use the "how much house can I afford" worksheet designed to maximize what you borrow. Use an opportunity cost lens. Add up the full monthly cost of owning, principal and interest, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, HOA, PMI, the stuff that breaks, the stuff that will break, then compare it to your rent. Take the gap and project it forward with real assumptions. Be honest about your likelihood of moving. Be honest about your income stability. Be honest about whether you'll invest the difference or spend it. And the next time someone tells you you're throwing money away on rent, don't argue with vibes. Ask them what they paid in interest last year. Ask them what they spent on repairs. Ask them if they've ever compared their down payment plus the monthly cost difference against a simple index fund over the same timeline. Most people have never done that math. They've only repeated the line. You don't have to repeat it. You can build wealth quietly. You can build it liquid. You can build it in a way that doesn't require you to be one roof leak away from panic. The American dream isn't dead. It just got repackaged into a product, and the price tag isn't what they say it is. Your job isn't to buy the story. Your job is to buy your freedom. So if buying makes sense for you, if the price-to-rent ratio is reasonable, if you'll stay long enough, if the payment fits with margin, if you want the lifestyle and you can afford the risk, buy. Own it with your eyes open. But if the spreadsheet says renting wins, then rent with your head high. Invest the difference. Build your options. Sleep through the night. Let your coworkers show you the granite again and smile because you're not behind. You're just not paying extra to feel ahead. If this changed how you think about renting and buying, don't keep it to yourself. Hit like so this reaches someone who's feeling behind for no reason. Subscribe for clear, honest money stories without the real estate fairy tales. Drop a comment, rent or own, and why. And remember, real wealth isn't about looking ahead, it's about building freedom quietly.